This is actually an update. Remember when we reported on a white female who saw a fender bender, decided to take the law in her own hands and kill an elderly black man, okay? She was eventually arrested for the murder. Now, we're talking about 3 years ago. We brought this to your attention because the NAACP in the local community of Clayton County, Georgia, said this was taking too damn long to be set for court. We have an update. After reporting on this story, it is now set for court. The court calendar is moving forward. Let me give you the background. Let's put up a picture. Her name is Hannah Payne. Hannah Payne, nearly 3 years ago, was charged in the murder of Mr. Kenneth Herring after she attempted what she called a citizen's arrest. The parties are now scheduled to appear in court on Monday, April 18th for the 9 a.m. court calendar. Let's put up the side-by-side picture of Miss Hannah Payne and Mr. Kenneth Herring. You see him there. He was brutally killed by Miss Payne. Now, I want to remind everyone of how heinous this crime was. She saw a fender bender. She decided to pursue the individual, Mr. Herring. Mr. Herring was actually experiencing a medical issue. She then called 911. 911 told her, stop pursuing. We have the information, stop pursuing. And she said no. She cornered Mr. Herring and his wife, took out her gun, loaded her gun, and put a bullet in his body and killed him. The NAACP sent me this message. On behalf of the family and activists, I truly thank TYT Network and Dr. Rashad Richey for bringing light to this case. Because of their reporting, much needed attention was brought to the demand for justice by the Herring family. That credit, ladies and gentlemen, that credit goes to you. Those who support this program, those who give a damn about what happens in communities all across this nation and beyond. Because of you, it put enough public pressure back on this case, and this case is scheduled for trial for the court calendar this month, and we just reported on it, all right? Let me give you some background. Payne allegedly shot Mr. Herring after witnesses and 911 operators say she followed him from a fender bender on Clark Howell Highway. This is in Clayton County, Georgia. Cut his red pickup truck off with her Jeep at Forest Parkway and Riverdale Road and put a gun on him. Now remember, this is a fender bender. According to the state's warrant, Payne did remove the firearm from her person during an altercation, loaded a bullet into the chamber, pointed the firearm at the victim, and pulled the trigger, striking the victim in the abdomen. Put up her picture again. That's a killer. Now that's a thug. According to courtroom testimony, an EMS worker on scene said Mr. Herring appeared to be having a diabetic emergency. Herring's wife, Christine, also said she thought he may have been having a diabetic emergency and was trying to drive himself to the hospital. But instead, this person, put a picture up again, decided to kill him. All right? Clayton County Police Detective Keon Hayward testified that the EMS responder said Herring seemed disoriented and that Payne ignored a 911 operator who told her not to follow Herring. The NAACP Clayton County branch says the case was taking too long to go to trial. President C. Cinnamon Baldwin has spearheaded a campaign to increase public awareness of the Payne case. On March 8th, Baldwin and Herring's brother Keith filed a complaint with the Georgia NAACP about the case's slow pace. And that is when they got in touch with us and we decided to get involved. That case, as Attorney Griggs from the NAACP quoted, that case is now scheduled for April 18th. Payne faces 2 counts of felony murder, 1 count each of malice murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment, and 3 counts of weapons possession during the commission of a crime. If convicted, she could be sentenced to life in prison. Put up her picture again. Right? See those tears? Those tears are there because she's in trouble, not because she's remorseful for the life that she took. Last year, the Georgia Assembly passed and Governor Brian Kemp signed House Bill 479, which repealed the state's Reconstruction era citizens arrest law in the wake of Ahmaud Arbery's death and Kenneth Herring's fatal shootings. The new law specifically forbids the use of deadly force during citizens' arrest. Now, Ms. Payne's attorney, they are arguing self-defense. They are saying she had no other choice because after doing all of that, according to the defense, she was simply in fear of her life. And so she had no choice but to load her gun and shoot the elderly Mr. Herring in cold blood in front of his wife. Ms. Dog, thoughts on this case?
Well, first of all, kudos to you and your watchers for putting pressure because this is necessary, whether or not it's an unconscious bias or frankly just overworked prosecutors. They need pushes like this. And it's true that the defendant the defendant has a constitutional right to a speedy trial, but not the prosecutor. The prosecutor is doesn't have that right to speed up the trial. And so she was out on bond. So she was okay with the delays. So it did take this outside pressure to put it on. And in terms of the actual self-defense argument that she's gonna have, it does sound pretty outrageous, but we've all seen a lot of high profile cases recently where the person with the gun who initiated the argument ends up prevailing with the self-defense. There was that popcorn murder trial out of Florida. I was astounded that he was able to get acquitted based on that. So, the brother of the victim here has talked publicly about the problem with guns in America. And I think this case is a really good example. How many times are we gonna allow the person with the gun to then claim that they needed to use it for self-defense when the other person had no weapon? So whether or not this jury does the right thing or not, I think we have a much larger problem on our hands with these self-defense and the use of guns in that way.
Very well said. We're gonna continue to follow this story until completion.